In California, murder is defined by one number, 187. Section 187 of California Penal Code defines the unlawful killing of a human being. But in the street slang, in rap, and hip-hop culture, 187 is more than the law. It's a symbol, a warning, a prophecy. From the streets of Los Angeles to the studios of Death Row Records, the number 187 became synonymous with violence, with power, with survival. And for the one rising star, Snoop Doggy Dogg, it would become a defining moment in his life and career. In 1992, Dr. Dre had just left NWA. His solo career was about to begin, and with it, a new sound, G-Funk.
Leaving NWA behind, Dre started his own label, Death Row Records, and found a new partner, rapper and former drug dealer Snoop Doggy Dogg, who he first teamed up with last summer on the Deep Cover soundtrack.
He grew up with my little brother, so he's been around. I never knew he could rap. He could rap until maybe about 2 years ago. My little brother had a tape of him at a bachelor party. We popped the tape in. It was funky.
People want to know about me because they don't know too much about me. They know Dre, but it's like...
For his first solo single, he chose a story-driven track for the film Deep Cover. On it, a young rapper would make his first ever recorded appearance, Snoop Doggy Dogg. The song was gritty, it was cinematic, and it mirrored the story on the screen. An undercover cop infiltrating a drug syndicate, going so deep that he risked losing himself. Soon after, the song was reimagined as 187, directly referencing the infamous police code.
Eastbound 60 at Venice, following a 187 suspect.
The track was relentless, as if Snoop himself were narrating the life on the edge, life on the streets, and the thin line between survival and death.
Yeah? That's what you're saying.
Thank you, 5
I ain't no police.
Snoop Dogg's career was a meteoric rise. Doggy Style, his debut album, sold nearly 800,000 copies in its first week, and by the end of the next year, over 4 million.
Doggy Dogg's debut album sold 1 million copies in its record-breaking first week. But Snoop's no stranger to controversy. The former gang member and drug dealer is on $1 million bail on accessory to murder charges.
Yet as his fame rose, so did the shadows around him. Gang affiliation, street rivalries, and the law were never far behind.
The violence is about turf and gang colors and sometimes drug deals gone bad. It feeds on revenge.
Black on black crimes for about a good month or two when the riots and the looting jumped off as far as the verdict. And what that was showing was if you put opportunity out here, the violence will stop. It was opportunity to get things that you wanted. So people took those things that they wanted and stopped the violence. But never did you hear the news mention, well, there was no violence today or this day. But as soon as the looting and stuff stopped, the news jumped right back on. Somebody got killed in a drive-by because they like negativity. They don't like...
Snoop's music projected a world full of parties, good times, and rhythmic storytelling.
With so much drama in the LBC, it's kind of hard being Snoop D-O-double-G.
But outside the studio, Los Angeles was a different kind of stage. A stage where a single altercation could change. August 1993, Snoop Dogg and his bodyguard McKinley Lee became embroiled in a deadly confrontation. Philip Waldemerum, an alleged gang member, was killed. Snoop and Lee would later claim self-defense, arguing Waldemerum reached for a gun.
It happened in this Los Angeles park. Snoop's bodyguard shot and killed 24-year-old Philip Waldemerum. Snoop didn't pull the trigger, but he, the bodyguard, and a third man were all charged with murder because prosecutors say they hunted down Waldemerum after an earlier argument. Snoop's attorney claims self-defense and says the DA has an agenda.
He had a gun and, he was going for it. And my bodyguard reacted, like he was supposed to do.
Snoop went on the run, evading the police for a week. But behind the scenes, Suge Knight, the head of Death Row, orchestrated a plan. Snoop would appear at the VMAs to promote his album. and then quietly surrendered.
Whatever it takes to sell records, it's good.
Murder sales. That's why people do videos on sex and murder.
These criminal charges against you, somebody could see that as good publicity.
Not necessarily, because I'm not happy that someone ended up dead and I got to go to court for this and people thinking I'm some killer.
I took him because I knew one thing. For me to make this dude the most hottest artist in the world, people got to see him. So I know we taking up his chance, but at the same time, it's his job to be an artist and promote this stuff. And then when they come to arrest him, it's my job to get him out of there.
Bailed out for $1 million. The trial would not begin for nearly 2 years.
Snoop turns himself in for first-degree murder. Immediately, Suge gets him released on $1 million bond with a 10 p.m. house arrest.
I'm like, damn, then you got a murder and you out?
The trial would not begin for nearly 2 years.
Gentlemen, you each have the right to have a speedy trial. That means within 60 days of today's date. The agreement between the attorneys is that we calendar your matter on Thursday, January the 20th for a pre-trial.
During that time, Snoop's music thrived. Tracks like Murder Was the Case blurred lines between art and reality, casting him as a victim in a story only Los Angeles could write.
Criminal charges can be a career ender, especially for celebrities, but not in the case of the rap singer who calls himself, quote, Snoop Doggy Dogg. A judge in Los Angeles refused today to drop murder charges against him. But the charges haven't hurt his career. In fact, some accuse the rapper of making crime pay, as Reed Galen reports in tonight's Eye on America.
As Calvin Broadus leaves the court where he has just appeared on murder charges, little kids clamor for his autograph. They know him as rapper Snoop.
Even while facing murder charges, Snoop remained committed to his art and his community. He opened a few youth programs and began to build a legacy beyond the music.
That tries to, brainwash anybody that's trying to be down with something black, that's positive, that's young, that can move something in this world. That's what I am. I'm in that position where I can move something, and what they do is try to brainwash my audience so I won't have no audience.
The Snoop I know, and I've known him for about 10 months.
For Snoop, music was survival. Music was storytelling. Music was proof that the streets could give birth to legends, and that legends could survive the streets.
That creep with me as I crawl through the hood, maniac, lunatic, calling Snoop Eastwood, kicking dust as I bust police. You know what I'm saying? I was just laid back on that song. That song was like, when I wrote that song, it was like a whole lot of frustration was on my mind, and I was hungry as far as wanting to work. And I put my whole heart on the line with that song. That's probably why so many people felt me off of that song and really, wanted to dig into the vibe of Snoop Dogg and see what's really going on, because that song was so real and so from the heart.
In 1996, after 6 days of deliberations, Snoop and McKinley Lee were acquitted of murder charges. The jury deadlocked on voluntary manslaughter.
People of the state of California versus McKinley Lee. Los Angeles Superior Court case number BA086649. We, the jury, in a above entitled action, find the defendant, McKinley Lee, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree in violation of Penal Code Section 187, a felony, is charged in count 1 of the information. Dated February 13, 1996, Charles B. Foster, foreperson.
I remember when we talked to McKinley Lee, he had mentioned that this case was really more so about him and that the actions that he took.
Snoop walked free, but the story didn't end there. His music immortalized the tension, the fear, and the culture of survival.
As the debate continues over the influence of rap lyrics, some rappers and their opponents are looking to open constructive dialogue. Reverend Calvin Butts, who last year destroyed explicit rap tapes and CDs, now questions that approach.
The steamroller was in fact what any good parent who was opposed to the filth in some of these records would do. They'd take these things from their children and throw them in the garbage can. I will not do that again. It was a one-time effort to draw attention.
The reason why I think it's hitting the Reverend, because he feels that the power that I have right now, if I was doing something positive as far as, hey, don't do drugs, don't do that, I guess he feels that it'll stop the violence. But I'm here to tell you that's not going to happen. I mean, you know it and I know it, that's not going to happen. Reverend Butts ain't got no love for us. You know what I'm saying? And it shouldn't be like that, especially if he's a preacher. You're supposed to counsel us, you know what I'm saying? Maybe if he sit down and said, look here, Snoop, you got that position. Why don't you change your rap up like this and be more whoop whoop wham? Maybe I would respect him and when I'm writing, change it up a little taste and give him that right hand. You know what I'm saying? To say, okay, I'm gonna do this for.
When the verdict was announced, Los Angeles excelled. For some, Snoop Dogg's acquittal was justice. For others, it was controversy. But for the streets, it was victory. The young man who came from Long Beach, who rapped about reality rather than fiction, walked out a free man.
I feel the reason why we got away with it because our dialogue was basically centered around a movie. And I mean, the movie was called Deep Cover. It was a tale of an undercover cop becoming a criminal, but still playing the role of an undercover cop. So, and the way I put it down was like, the rap went with the movie. But then again, it didn't go with the movie because I wrote the rap before I seen the movie. So, you know, it's like, you know, the movie took out the flack for us as far as, you know, trying to get at the police and this and that, you know.
Inside Death Row Records, celebrations didn't last long. Suge Knight, the label's powerful CEO, saw the acquittal as fuel. To him, Snoop wasn't just an artist, he was an icon, a symbol of resilience, a walking billboard for the Death Row empire.
I keep my hand on my gun, cause they got me on the run. Now I'm back in the courtroom, waiting on the outcome. Free Tupac, it seems that's all that's on my mind.
Dr. Dre goes, been there, done that, through with it.
If he chooses to go on, move forward, and do his own thing. For me, I'm not trying to be an asshole about it, but it can be a better position for me. I mean, Death Row is a multi-million-dollar company that have a catalog of hits on top of hits, and I still own all the masters.
But tension simmered. Dr. Dre was already drifting away from the label. Violence, lawsuits, and a federal attention were closing in.
What's the future of Death Row now, in light of Dre's departure and now Tupac's untimely death?
I'm not saying anything, you know, for trying to put Dre down as a person. Dre's departure wasn't a loss. 2 reasons. I mean, one of the reasons, it was the greatest thing in the world for me. I mean, if you have a multi-million-dollar company, maybe worth $1 billion or so, and you own it 100% and don't have a partner, and you didn't have to give him nothing but his walking papers, that's great.
Wow.
So that wasn't a negative. And
Snoop now found himself between two worlds, the studio that made him a star and a criminal justice system that nearly took it all away. Every interview, every public appearance, every song he released, the question followed him: did he get away with murder? Inside the courtroom, prosecutors didn't just put Snoop Dogg on trial, they put his lyrics on trial. Lines from The Murder Was the Case, Deep Cover, and 187 were read out loud, framed as evidence of intent.
No, he wasn't doing his job. If he was doing his job, he would have called the case off. That's doing your job. Seek justice. He knew we was not guilty. He knew that. He knew McKinley Lee acted in self-defense. McKinley Lee has never, ever, ever, ever been involved with gangs. I have. McKinley Lee has never been involved with gangs. He was the trigger man.
The defense argued opposite, that music was expression, not confession, that art reflected the streets, not the future. And in the end, the jury agreed. After walking free from the murder trial in 1996, Snoop Dogg had survived what few could imagine. But the streets and the media never stopped watching. It was a moment to reflect, not just on his own survival, but on the stories told in the rap that mirrored life and controversy. From Deep Cover to 187, from Doggy Style to Murder Was the Case, Snoop Dogg became a symbol of the West Coast rap, a living testament to resilience, art, and the complex dance between fame and danger. 187, not just a code, not just a number. For Snoop Dogg, it was a story of survival, of music, of a culture that refuses to be silenced. And for the streets of Los Angeles, it became legend.